Greetings, brothers. My name is Kevin Scott, and I'm the current historian of the Chicago Alumni Chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi. Tonight, I'm here with Brother Leland White. He is one of our past Polemarchs of the Chicago Alumni Chapter. I welcome you. Thank you for welcoming us in your home this evening, Brother White. All right, and thank you for allowing us to interview you this evening. We'd like to start off just by asking you a few questions. I don't want to be remiss. I'm also joined here by our good brother Reginald Manny, who's operating the camera for us this evening. Brother White, would you share some information with us about your life? Basic things like where you were born, where you grew up at, your family, and your subsequent professional life.
Okay, well, I was born in Little Rock, Arkansas. My mother and father had a child that died before I was born, and my grandmother and grandfather who lived in Little Rock asked my mother to, if she ever got pregnant again, to make sure she came down and she delivered the baby at her house. So that's how I was born there. And 9 weeks later, I returned to Chicago, and I've been in Chicago ever since.
Okay.
I went to elementary school at Gladstone Elementary at 13th and Damon, and finished there and went to McKinley High School that no longer exists, and left McKinley and went into the Army Service Training Program at the University of Illinois in 1946, and left there and went into the service as a medical administrative officer.
Which branch of the service were you in, brother?
Army Medical Service,
Okay.
Medical Corps, and came back after 27 months in the service, and went to Roosevelt University, where I received a bachelor's degree in 1953 and a master's degree in 1957. The short version of my story is that I got married in 1958 to a lovely young lady, Yvonne Bertha, and we had 2 sons, Leland III and Lawrence White, who's one of our Kappa brothers. And on. I became a teacher in 1955 and taught for a classroom for about 4 or 5 years. And I became a counselor and an assistant principal and district administrator and central office administrator, and retired as the director of teacher benefits and employee benefits and teacher. Can we clean this up?
Sure.
Ready. We retired as the district director of the Insurance and Employee Benefits Division for Chicago Public Schools. I've been retired for 18 years, and my wife and I spend 5 to 6 months a year in Florida, and the other time here in our new home in Olympia Fields. We lived in Peel Hill for 36 years while our children grew up and went to went to elementary school, high school, and college. Both of whom have their own families now. I'm near to my grandchildren, and they visit quite frequently.
Okay. All right. Well, that's great. You happened to mention to us a little earlier that one of your sons is also a Kappa brother of ours. Could you give us a little, elaborate a little bit more about where he pledged and different things that's going on with him, his different accomplishments?
Of course. My son Lawrence White pledged at Beta Chapter, University of Illinois, Urbana, Champaign-Urbana, and matriculated at the Circle campus for a year or two, and took the dental examination and went down to Alton, Illinois, to the new dental school and became a dentist. He worked as a dentist for about 13 years. Then he decided he wanted to do some other things. He went to California and earned a master's of business administration degree from Pepperdine University, and now works as a underwriter for Comerica Bank. He's married to a young lady from India, and they have a son, and they saving their funds to come back to Chicago for his mother and father's 50th anniversary, wedding anniversary.
All right. Well, we extend a preliminary congratulations to you.
Thank you. Our other son, Leland, a graduate from the University of Illinois in electrical engineering, and he took some courses as an accountant at University of Illinois, and is now working on a CPA in accounting. He has his own firm, and he has an office in Olympia Fields. He lives about a quarter of a mile from us. It is his children that are my grandchildren that come down every day. He has 5 kids, and 2 in high school, and 2 in elementary school, and 1 in nursery school.
Okay. Is there anything in particular that you'd like to share with us about your first son that you mentioned, Lawrence, about his accomplishments in particular in Kappa Alpha Psi?
Lawrence has always been a hard worker for the fraternity. He left the University of Illinois at Champaign and came up to Circle campus, and he was in some ways responsible for adding some glue to Kappa Phi. He worked with Michael Hughes and Julius Pope and a few other younger fellows. I think Michael had pledged with Larry down at Urbana earlier, but he didn't go over at that time. He went over later on, but he's a very energetic Kappa. As a matter of fact, now he and some other fellows from Chicago, I think, have established a chapter in Beverly Hills, California. It's a new chapter, and I've sent him some materials, and they seem to be growing fairly well. Kappa seems to be in our blood now, and when the fraternity celebrates its centennial, I will be celebrating my 60th year in the fraternity. Many of the members of the quarter century, that's the organization that I spend most of my time with when I'm in the area. We've been able to get a lot of the men their 50-year pins and certificates, and international headquarters knows me quite well in trying to get several things done for fraternity members and for the quarter century organization. I'm a stalwart of Chicago Alumni Chapter. I think I've been with the Chicago Alumni Chapter since 1953, off and on, so I'm quite familiar with the workings of the chapter and how things get done. I've served on many committees. My first committee I served on, I was appointed by C. Roger Wilson back in the good old days at the 4752 South Ellis Avenue.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to go back just a little bit to talking about your time in college. Tell us about where you attended school again?
Roosevelt University.
Roosevelt University. And at that time when you were attending Roosevelt, what would you say was the racial percentage of students at your school at that time?
I would imagine it was 80% Jewish and 20% black and 15% black and 7% others.
Okay. And while you were there, was there something that inspired you to become a member of Kappa Alpha Psi, or did that come earlier, prior to the time that you were attending school there?
I had been introduced to Kappa at the high school level by one of my neighbors, who was the owner of Seaway Furniture. And when I went away to college at the University of Illinois, I didn't have an opportunity to pledge because I lived on the north end down there back in those days. The University of Illinois didn't have provisions for men, black men, to live on campus. So most of us lived on the north end until I got to the parade ground units in what they call the Enlisted Reserve Corps and the Army Service Training Program. But when I went to Roosevelt, when I came out of the service, I went directly to Roosevelt after a year or so lingering, and I was determined at that point to become a Kappa. I had pledged, and I determined to become a Kappa. And grades were important, and tuition was important. I had used up all my GI Bill before I graduated, so we had to have part-time jobs to augment the little money that we were getting from the GI Bill. But in 1951, I started Roosevelt in 1949 and was initiated in Kappa Alpha Psi in 1951.
And that was the Alpha Rho chapter?
Alpha Rho chapter, right.
Right. And what was your line's name?
We didn't have line names back in those days, but my roommate was the Polemarch of Alpha Rho, and he was Polemarch because he was studying architecture at what's the name of the school real quick?
IIT.
IIT, right. And at that time, the student who attended IIT was the Polemarch, so he remained Polemarch for a couple of years until another student joined the fraternity and became Polemarch, I think. But we didn't have names for our groups at the time. We just had large groups because students from Roosevelt and University of Illinois and Navy Pier, and I guess those, and IIT, of course, made up the bulk of.
It was like a citywide chapter.
Citywide chapter, right?
Right.
With the charter being at IIT.
Okay. And how many brothers were on your line?
It started out with 32, and it narrowed itself down. It was winnowed down to 11 who crossed the sands with us.
Okay.
We crossed the sands together.
Okay. And how many of those brothers that were on your line are still with us today?
5 at last count.
Okay.
Only 5 of the 11.
Including yourself?
Including myself, right.
Right. And do you have an opportunity to converse with the remaining brothers from your line nowadays?
Well, Brother Leo Holt was the best man in my wedding, and I see him occasionally. And
Is he a judge?
yeah,
Okay.
Judge Holt. And Arthur Hickson and I have stayed close up until his death, his untimely death a couple of years ago. Who else? Floyd Meacham came to Chicago to get his 50-year pen that I had secured for him. And Billy Brown, I saw him about 5 years ago.
Okay.
And Donald Ballinger, I see him occasionally, and I would see him occasionally because we work for the Chicago Board of Education. But those are the only living ones that I believe from our group.
Okay. That you know of, did any of your line brothers attain prominent positions within the fraternity and or the subsequent personal life, personal professional life?
Well, Brother Holt became a judge, and Floyd Meacham became a physician, osteopathic physician. Arthur Hickson became I think the world's largest popcorn salesman for the airlines. Other than that, I became a public servant for the Chicago Board of Education
Okay.
for 36 years. So,
Okay. And how would you define initiation as it occurred to you as you entered the fraternity?
well, I didn't have a lot of problems with initiation. Naturally, there were some of the things that went on that I didn't approve of personally, but they were administered in ways that were not barbaric, they were administered in ways that left you with some dignity and some feeling of brotherhood and what have you. So my pledgeship was, while it had some pain in it was acceptable, and I am affiliated with a lot of those brothers who subjected me to that pain today, and we are good friends.
Okay. All right. So with that being said, tell me about how the experience of as a Kappa in those days, as you matriculated into the fraternity, you have seen it change throughout the years. What are your observations?
Well, I have two. One is that in 1950 and a little before that, I thought there was a greater need for fraternities, black fraternities, as we matriculated in these 4-year white universities. So there was a need to feel some camaraderie among student bodies and so on. There were a lot of us who didn't know how to study, that we were helped in our study habits by being members of fraternity. And there were a lot of us from different cities and different states. We came together to create some bonds between us. With those kind of things back at that time, fraternity had a real need and a real meaning for existing. I don't know why people pledge these days. None of those factors are in work, are functioning nowadays.
Okay.
It's strictly a social club, or whatever you want to call it, nowadays. The fraternal spirit, I don't think is there as much as I thought it was there when I came through.
Okay.
If I were to pledge, if I were to be offered an opportunity today, I would not be a pledge in any fraternity.
So that brings me to my next question, which I believe you probably covered it. Do you have an opinion of the pledge program versus the current intake program?
Well, I guess I do. When we pledged, we learned about the fraternity from soup to nuts. We were encouraged in many ways to know all about the fraternity and the men in the fraternity, and why they got the fraternity started, and their contributions to the fraternity as well as to the outside world. Today, I think members, brothers become brothers before they even know anything about the fraternity. Whatever they find out through working in committees after they've become brothers. And many of them never work on committees because they never return after the initiation ceremony of the intake ceremony, I guess it's called nowadays. I remember when I was more active than now, we would initiate 10, 20, 30 men in June, and in September we might find 4 or 5 of them returning, and the others we wouldn't see anymore for whatever some of their reasons were. And which led me to believe that as the initiation or intake fees went up, the number of brothers declined. And that's the kind of thing that I never understood. I've been absent from my fraternity in spite of in terms, but I've always come back.
Right.
I've always worked and served,
Right.
you know. But I'm talking about people who, after the intake ceremony, you don't see them anymore. We have a whole slew of those out there.
Right.
That and we have people who join gangs and involved in drugs and every other endeavor that out in society these days. I don't think that was true back in the old days, so to speak.
No, I wouldn't think so either. So tell me that, how much of a role do you feel Kappa played in preparing you to be a leader in your professional life?
Oh, Kappa was very central in preparing me. I grew up on the west side where few men went to college. Many dropped out of high school, so they weren't even preparing to go to college. And of those few who did go to college activities were foreign to them had it not been for the fraternity and what have you. And some of the men like, and I say C. Roger because it's a name that everybody knows, but very few people that I talk to now really knew C. Roger. C. Roger was a very, very organized person, and he was quite helpful to a lot of people in a lot of different ways. He was very organized, and he would take you places, have you work on committees, and in doing so you could learn a lot about how the graduate chapter and the grand chapter operated, and the organization that was involved and what have you. We had men from our chapter to be junior grand vice polemarchs and grand strategists and what have you. So we were always able to see growth from the fraternal point of view as well as from the personal point of view.
Okay. And let me ask you this. This is along the same lines, but it's a little bit different. We'd like to know if you encountered difficult struggles in your life as a young professional, coming out of college into the workforce. Were there any roadblocks that were in your way that also Kappa possibly helped you prepare to handle those things as well?
Well, not really. My degrees were in psychology, and I had enough courses that were considered education courses to allow me to get started as a teacher. And there were men in the fraternity who were, as a matter of fact, the only two black men in Chicago who were principals were in the fraternity. And they were very helpful in trying to get fellows started into education. There was a big need to have men in education, black men in education,
Right.
as well as black women in education. And these men would come to the frat house any day, any evening, and help you do whatever it was. That show you how to do lesson plans, show you how to do preparation for the next day's lessons, tell you how to manage classrooms, whatever. After you've been trained for some of those kind of things, they make it real for you.
Okay, so for your personal experience, the brothers in the fraternity that were in your career choice
Right.
were already there. They laid a lot of groundwork and they made things possible for you to be able to attain the level of
Easy and possible, right.
right. Okay. All right. Well, let me change gears for a moment and let me ask you this: what prompted you to run for the office of Polemarch when you did?
Well, having sat in the seat of just a member for a good number of years, and having completed my career goal, I had time on my hand, and I thought that I could do a much better job. I thought I could bring more to the chapter than had been brought in certain instances, and I thought the chapter would. I thought that I could turn some things around in the chapter that I wasn't able to do, but I thought I'd be able to do them at the time, and I knew everybody that was in there. Everybody there knew me, and they knew me as an achiever and a hard worker. So I had no problem really, other than putting my name into nomination and being winning the vote. But if I were to make a list of my more difficult assignments,
Mm-hmm.
I think that being Polemarch in the new Chicago alumni chapter would be one of my more difficult assignments.
Okay. All right. And how many terms did you serve as Polemarch for Chicago Alumni?
One.
Okay. And had you held any other offices throughout the years in either Chicago Alumni or any other chapter?
I've only been in two chapters in Kappa. That was Alpha Road as an undergraduate and Chicago Alumni as a graduate. And I've been Polemarch, an undergraduate vice Polemarch. I've been membership chairman. I've worked on guide right committees. I've worked on social committees. I guess that's about the extent of it.
All right. Let me ask you, what are some of your fondest memories since you have been a member of Kappa Alpha Psi?
I think my most fondest memory would be the association with men that I believe were just quality people, men that were achievers, men that were receptive to doing things for their communities. I think I was fortunate in being a Kappa, in that I came across, and there was a rich pardon me, when there was a rich concern for brotherhood and what have you. Many of those fellows are dead, but quite a few of them are still alive, and we still enjoy that same kind of camaraderie.
Okay.
And trying to foster that same thing in other men has been part of the things that I've attempted to do as being a member of the fraternity.
All right. Well, with that being said, do you have a favorite Kappa brother that comes to mind? You don't have to pick just one. Or one of the Kappa brothers who you admire the most.
Well, let's start with C. Roger Wilson, Robert Lewis, Albert Dumas, let me throw Ron Samuels in there too. I think I learned a lot from Ron.
He's one of my favorite too.
Is that right?
Yeah, yes he is.
Yeah, Ron's a good man. Jimmy Williams. Jimmy and I still have a very, very warm relationship between us. I enjoy the friendship of Harold Pates and both his families, his particular family and his biological family before they passed on. So there's just a lot of men that I could name, and having named, I'm sure I left a few out.
Okay.
But these are people that are outstanding in my association.
Okay. And in relationship to that, how would you describe an ideal Kappa from your perspective?
An ideal Kappa. That's a good.
Well, let me rephrase it a little bit, make it a little bit clearer for you. What is it in a Kappa man that epitomizes, in your opinion, everything that a Kappa should embody or represent?
First of all, is honesty. And by honesty, I mean personal honesty as well as the other uses of the word. Men who know themselves well, first of all, and know how to set goals for themselves and try to follow up and realize those goals, and enjoy family and enjoy the other fruits of life, whatever they may be for the individuals. But there's more to being a Kappa than what the general public thinks about. We do more than party. We party too.
And we're good at it.
And we're good at it, right. But we do more than that.
Right. Right. Well, and that's the reason why I wanted to get your perspective on that. What are your recollections of the founders?
Narrow that down for me now.
Any opportunity that you may have had throughout the years to have personally come across any of the founders that were living at that time, either personally something that, a word that they may have shared with you from time to time, or some of the actions that they have done that you recall that stick out in your mind?
Well, the founders, I know that we were we had an advantage to listen to Brother Irwin. He was a Chicagoan, and he just passed here within the last 10 or 15 years maybe. And founders, I think he may be the only founder that I remember or had any association with.
Mm-hmm. Were there any times where you may have had the opportunity to have a discussion with him, maybe at the old our last chapter house or at any one of the Founders Day celebrations where you may have seen him, that you have any memories of anything that he may have said that stuck out in your mind as being memorable?
The last thing that I remember in regards to Brother Irwin was that we sang the Sweetheart Song to his wife.
Okay.
Yeah, but other than that, it was a long distance kind of thing as far as I was concerned.
Okay. Let me ask you, do you believe that we are currently carrying out the vision of our founders?
Of the founders?
Yes.
No.
And could you elaborate?
I don't believe the founders envisioned the fraternity one as being as large as it is. I would think it would have been impossible for them to have envisioned the fraternity as a
Worldwide entity.
yes, yeah. Secondly, without that vision, I don't think they could have anticipated some of the social areas and academic, well, not academic, because they stem from academics, but well, take the Guide Right movement. The Guide Right movement was a local type thing, and it was meant to increase the fraternity perhaps at the time, as well as give recognition to what we referred to at that time as a community. Well, the community was small, local kinds of things. Nowadays, the community can be almost be like the world.
Right. Okay. So, with that being said, do you tell us your opinion about what pros and cons you might believe exists in our fraternity at large, and then in our chapter that you feel needs changing?
Well, we need to have our bylaws keep up with our progress, or with progress in the nation and what have you. And I don't think that's being done. The fraternity does not have the kind of brotherhood that it once had. It's impossible to have. There's just so many people that you don't know, and that are so different from you. So the kind of brotherhood that I'm talking about, that I think we had almost 60 years ago, is just impossible to have. Now, if you talk about 60 years ago, what would make you believe that 97 years ago we'd have the same kind of thing? We recognize each other nowadays by emblems. If you don't have an emblem, I have no way of knowing you're a Kappa. There have been people who said that I could tell you were a Kappa by your manner. That's no longer true, if it was ever true. But once an organization gets to be in that mega category, it loses a lot of its personality.
Mm-hmm. What are the your hopes and aspirations for the future of Kappa Alpha Psi?
I think the only thing I can say is I wish them well.
Okay. What type of role do you believe that senior Kappas should play in the fraternity?
Should play or can play?
Either one you'd like to answer.
I think that senior Kappas should be available for what am I looking for?
Guidance, mentorship to younger Kappas.
When called upon.
Okay.
Yeah, when called upon. I don't think they need to stand in the way of up and coming young men who have some ideas that are progressive.
Okay.
I don't think they need to be vying for office from these people. I think they just as you guys are doing now. If you feel a need that we can give some help in some kind of way, then we will try to help in that way. But I think that this is one of the things that I thought that the Chicago Alumni Chapter should always do, and you should have a Polemarch Council, a past Polemarch Council, that they could lead and participate in their that kind of council kind of thing among themselves, and enjoy that kind of camaraderie among themselves, but not to have an association that would bring them all together from time to time, just for the purpose of.
It's a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
Has it, to your knowledge, has that idea ever been formally presented?
I don't know.
Okay.
I've never done that before.
Okay. Is there anything further that you would like to add for prosperity that I didn't ask you, that you want to make sure that you voice or lend to other Kappas who will see this in the future?
Well, not very much, but I think that everybody has to have something to say about that. And I think that we need to lean more toward our motto, achievement. And that means in personal life, in the fraternity, in your church, or whatever it happens to be. You need to spread those beliefs and ideas that you have in such a way that larger communities and bodies of people can profit. And then young men coming along, many of them may not be Kappas, but if we do things for young Kappas, we ought to be able to do some of those same things for other young men who may not be fraternities at all. But just because they're young men, and especially young black men, I'm not saying we ought to be exclusive to young black men, but especially young black men who don't have as many mentoring
Opportunities available to them?
As other folk might have. You know.
Okay.
But that would be my desires for the fraternity.
Okay. Well, Brother White, I appreciate your time and granting us this opportunity to speak with you and share your history and your knowledge with us. And this is going to conclude this particular video segment of Brother Leland White's contribution to Chicago Alumni Chapter for the DVD video. Thank you, brothers.